In brightest day,
in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank for another round of comic run talk, and here we are back with Sam Humphrey's Green Lantern run. So, looking back on Sam Humphrey's run, I was surprised to find out that Humphreys left the book after 32 issues, with him being offered to write Harley Quinn as well as Dial H for Hero later on, and will be replaced by Tim Seeley, whose run really has little to do with Humphreys, at least I think so, and we won't be going that far in. Humphreys, I felt, should have stayed on, and we see this with other comic runs like Wonder Woman, who we'll be talking about later on, but it always feels like it's a bit of a mistake, and really only Batman has been able to boast having a writer stay for such a long tenure during his run. For example, Scott Snyder stayed until the end of New 52, going into Rebirth. He didn't plan on it, and Tom King stayed well into the 80s, like the middle of the 80s, but still. But anyway, back to Green Lanterns. It's an interesting question as to who the main character is in this run. Is it Jessica or is it Simon? And if I had to say who the standout character is, it would honestly be depending on the story. Humphreys is very interested in making it so that the main character is really about the story, and even then both of them have plenty of internal dialogue to sort of help remind you, hey, we're here, and we're also possibly still going through our own stuff. That's very easy with Jessica. I feel like the first two stories in the second part are good examples of this. The first story is A Day in the Life, and it really shows us a look at Jessica Cruz's life and how it can be living with anxiety, how hard it can be to just get out of bed, how nice and friendly the Justice League is, and the day-to-day duties they have as superheroes. Even telling Simon, when they're having pancakes one day, that the color of an anxiety lantern, where, rage is red, green is will, fear is yellow, anxiety is red plaid, because red plaid is loud, ugly, and it makes everything look bad. The story is also about Simon, and by extension us learning about what Jessica goes through, the idea that every day is a battle, and she has spent a lot of time just trying to quiet the voice in her head that says she can't do this. The next story, Darkest Night, is very much a Simon story, as he and Jessica help Batman with Scarecrow using Sinestro Corps tech that was left over from when Sinestro Corps defended the planet, which was a really fun story. It was a really fun little run written by Colin Bunn. We might talk about that another time. The story there is about Simon learning to rely less on the gun he carries from his first appearance onward, and more on him and his fear that he won't be enough to protect his family. And a lot of Simon's story is about why he doesn't just trust his ring, because he's seen it fail before, but it really is about himself. And this story is what leads to him being recruited by Batman for a secret project, which we'll see in Dark Knight's Metal. There's also a that Simon might be one of the few lanterns that Batman sort of gets along with. He really only doesn't get along with Hal and Guy, because they're so on the opposite end of him in some ways. John, he's sort of middle ground with, and Kyle, it depends on the story half the time. I don't think he really talks to Kyle, like at all. Then we have something fun like, well, not really fun, but interesting, like Last Testament of the First Lantern, which goes more into the bigger story that Humphreys is trying to tell here, as well as the story of Volthoom, the First Lantern. Now, if you recall, Volthoom, last time we saw him, he'd taken over the body of Raimi during the Phantom Ring story, and now we look exactly who he is. And we didn't quite know this before. We didn't quite know it at all. We knew he was the First Lantern, and that he'd been locked away by the Guardians. And it was all sort of really vague. It's really more interesting what he could do at that time. So we found out here he's from Earth 15, and that he and his mother were scientists who tried to escape a disaster using a travel lantern. He was able to escape, but his mother didn't, and he was found by the Guardians of the Universe when they still had emotions. Actually, he saw them the day they were getting rid of them, and he formed a working relationship / friendship with them and Raimi as they tried to help him get home and discover the emotional spectrum and their eventual falling out, which led to his imprisonment. It is also revealed that because of how connected he is to the emotional spectrum, even Necron, the entity of death, can't kill him 10 billion years later. So in a lot of ways, what Volthoom wants to do now that he's out is either die or get home and possibly save his mom, if that's still a possibility. That's really good stuff. Then we have the Polaris Effect, which is a story about Simon that really feels like it really banked on Dr. Polaris as a villain, and I think it highlights a sort of weakness of the run, and that there isn't a constant antagonist that the duo are dealing with, nor any established enemy, and instead goes back and forth with rather short stories about rather random enemies. Now, to his credit, Humphries puts in the effort to make a connection between either Simon or Jessica and an antagonist, but with Volthoom being the big target now, we know he's the major player. He has no connection to any of the antagonists. He doesn't have a connection to Polaris. He had a connection to Frank Leminski, but that didn't mean anything. Atrocitus meant nothing, and Polaris hasn't mattered in years. Atrocitus is still a big name in the Green Lantern community. But Polaris does match the themes of Simon's story, namely the aspect of family and friendship, which is shown with Simon's relationship with Nazir, which has been a bit strained. Simon is living with Nazir and his wife, Simon's sister, and he's not really doing anything other than his Green Lantern work, which is great, but he's not really contributing to the family. And I think what's happening is the relationship has changed so much that neither of them are really taking time to deal with it. So Dr. Neil Emerson's madness and love for his brother shows more how Simon and Jessica are as Green Lanterns than a sort of really interesting story. And even weirder is that Polaris, like Atrocitus, will end their story implying that there's more to come. That, we're just getting started. After the death of Neil's brother, Polaris, who was like this other personality for Neil, says, it wasn't your fault that your brother died. It was the Lantern's fault. And he says, well, I'll make them pay. They stop Atrocitus. Atrocitus is like, well, that was just the beginning of Red Dawn. None of these things ever come back. And this might be just because Humphries left the book. And Seeley had no real interest in going forward with that. There wasn't really obligation to. And that's something we should probably talk about later, also with Wonder Woman. But what this story really showed was how they didn't quite cut it as Green Lanterns. Simon and Jessica really sort of won a lot of their adventures by pushing forward, pretty much doing the anime logic of, power of friendship. Now let's go beyond our parameters this one time, but we can't seem to do it on the daily. And that's what Jon Stewart calls them, who in addition to being concerned about there being a guardian on Earth, that they can be dangerous, but also because they've never had formal training as Green Lantern, so he calls them to Oa. And that's how this particular arc ends. So I want to call this the Suburban Lantern arc. It sounds a bit stupid. Bear with me. That's just sort of how it feels, because it really is the day-to-day, their personal lives. Where with the Red Dawn and Phantom Ring story, that was very much about them getting into the job, questioning, hey, can I work with this person? What is my hang-up that's really stopping me? And then going into, is this the right ring for me? Now we're dealing with their day-to-day lives. We're dealing with Jessica's day-to-day anxiety issues. We're dealing with Simon coming to terms with using a gun and his family issues. And then the idea hey, we kind of suck as Green Lanterns. Despite our best efforts, they've been learning under fire, but they haven't had a real solid connection. And we'll go into that more next time. So anyway, with that, Bound brings the video to close here. If you're new to the button, thank you for the like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out some other videos. Smash that thumbs up button, and I'll catch you all later. This is Debug Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching, and as always, may your fandom serve you well.